All right, this week we are covering a ton of paddles, many of which caught my attention. Some I've tested, some just arrived, some that I've reviewed, and others I'm editing. We've got paddles from a new company called Pickle Poppers, a new Korean brand out of Seoul, with character-driven branding and premium packaging that reminds me of how Bread and Butter approaches the market. The Gherkin Wraith series, which is buried under the Pickle Poppers, is a budget Gen 3 line at around $121 with a semi-floating foam construction across 3 shapes. And Adidas is back with the ADIPOWER Pro under those, the ATTK in 14 and 16 millimeter elongated, plus the Control 16 millimeter standard shape, all with very high swing weights and some interesting quirks. The Diadem Edge BluCore series right here that improves on the Warrior line, but still struggles with value at $250 and $225 after code. Vatic's newest foam core launch, the V-Sol Pro and V-Sol Power at $99 after code, some of which need weight to work better. The Element 6 Zephyr, a Gen 4 EPP foam paddle at $125 that surprised me with how stable it plays out of the box. RPM's Friction Pro, a Gen 3 paddle that's rapidly becoming one of my favorite recommendations in this category, if not my favorite Gen 3 paddle so far. And underneath that, the Flik Falcon 13mm by Body Helix, where I'm definitely in the minority with my take on how this thing actually plays. So it's a mixed bag of releases, some hitting the mark and others missing it. So before we dig in, quick reminder, you can catch this podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Big thanks to Bodhi Pickleball for sponsoring this episode. They make premium overgrips, edge tape, paddle weights, and accessories designed to fine-tune your setup. I've been using their dry grips and weighted tape for months. It's all solid and premium stuff. Use code MPB to save 15% at bodhipickleball.com. Also a reminder that the products I'm featuring today were provided to me at no cost and came with no expectations and no money changed hands. So let me start with something completely new to the market, Pickle Poppers. This is a Korean brand launching out of the Gangnam district in Seoul, South Korea, and the whole approach reminds me of Bread and Butter. Character-driven branding, playful presentation, and they're clearly going after that same niche of players who want their gear to have some personality. Now, I haven't hit these paddles yet, but there's enough here that's interesting to talk about. They sent me 2 models, the Pop and Frost and Pop and Tango. The Frost is an elongated build, 16.5 by 7.5 inches, with a raw T700 carbon face and 16mm polypropylene core. This is a Gen 2 thermoformed construction. The static weight is 8.03 ounces with a 5.5-inch handle. What's notable is the PB Core rating, 0.44, which is the highest among USA Pickleball approved paddles right now. Under new USAP rules, anything over 0.43 gets delisted in May 2026. So this paddle is tournament legal now, but won't be in about a year. Pickle Poppers is being completely transparent about it, and they're offering anyone who buys a Frost now a 70% off code for a future compliant model when the rules change. That kind of transparency is refreshing compared to brands that quietly hope no one notices. The Tango is their standard shape option, 16 by 8 inches, that looks like the Fat Boy. Also 16 millimeters, also T700 carbon, but they've woven aramid fiber into the face layup. That's Kevlar-like material that adds control and dampens vibration while keeping the spin and power characteristics. The PB Core here drops to 0.41, so that's safely under the future limit. It comes in 7.92 ounces static and same 5.5-inch handle. The build is aimed at balancing all-court play and is the more controlled option compared to the Frost. What really caught my attention is the packaging and extras that I don't have a picture of, so sorry about that. Both paddles come in full sets. You get durable paddle covers with custom artwork that matches every paddle's theme. You get 2 vinyl stickers with the paddle's character mascot, and you get a random bonus gift, either a coin pouch or a pair of wristbands. The unboxing experience feels thoughtful and premium, also just like Bread and Butter's. Custom presentation box, inner wrapping, graphics throughout. For players who care about that stuff, or if you're buying it as a gift, it might add some perceived value. But here's the branding angle that really echoes Bread and Butter. Each paddle has its own character and personality. Frost is this cool, composed character with ice blue accents and snowflake graphics. Tango is a more flamboyant, music-inspired character with a fedora and vibrant street art style design. It's playful, it's memorable, and it sets them apart from the sea of paddles that just slap a logo on carbon fiber. Price-wise, the Frost is $140 and the Tango is $160. That undercuts most Gen 2 paddles by about $30 to $50, and you're getting all the extras included. They offer free shipping over $99, and they've got a 180-day warranty plus a 30-day trial period where you can return it if you're not satisfied. Sound familiar? I'm planning to playtest both of these over the next few weeks to actually see how they perform. As for customer service and support, you're not dealing with a company based in the US, so if that's important to you or causes you concern, you should look elsewhere. I do know they're working on some interesting Gen 4 concepts at the moment, so there will be more to come. Let me know if you want to know more about this company and the lineup. All right, next up is the Gherkin Wraith series. This is a Gen 3 line that just launched with pre-orders starting Monday, October 6th. 3 shapes, hybrid, standard, and elongated, all built around the same construction. Remember to use code MPB to knock that price down a bit. The core is 16mm large cell polypropylene with 10mm cells, which is bigger than the typical 8mm cells we see in most paddles like the Pro 4s and RPM paddles and many others. Around that core, they've positioned 4 EVA foam strips, top, bottom, and both sides, in what they're calling a semi-floating design. The foam doesn't fully isolate the core like some Gen 3 builds, but it's supposed to soften the impact response. The face uses a CFC layup, so 3 layers, carbon fiber, fiberglass, and carbon fiber, and all 3 shapes share this same internal structure. At $135 MSRP or $121 with code MPB, this sits in that budget Gen 3 category. They've also bumped the warranty to 6 months, which is an improvement over past models. The hybrid comes in at 16.25 by 7.625 inches wide, but here's the thing. It's narrower at the top than most hybrids at 7.6 inches. You'll notice it immediately in play. My test unit weighed 8.04 ounces with a swing weight of 111.25 and a twist weight of 6.25. That twist weight puts stability on the lower end, so off-center hits drop off earlier towards the edges. The pedal sits in that low to mid power range. It takes some swing effort to unlock power and dig into that fiberglass layer. But I also think that most of the perceived power comes from pop rather than through paddle-generated firepower. The contact response is crisp and quick. These are stiff paddles. The foam and large cell construction produce a softer impact than some Gen 2 paddles, but it's firmer than I expected given the perimeter foam, mainly due to, I think, that 10mm cell size. The narrower top width reduces forgiveness on resets and off-center touches, but sweet spot feedback is pretty clear. The 111 swing weight makes it easy to accelerate through hand exchanges and counters. Adding weight at 3 and 9, about 3 grams each, helps to stabilize the face without killing maneuverability. The standard shifts to a 16 by 7.875 inch traditional profile with a true 8-inch width throughout most of the face. My test unit came in at 7.98 ounces static with a swing weight of 106.75 and a twist weight of 6.5. That higher twist weight makes it noticeably more stable than the hybrid, and the full width improves consistency on resets and drops. It plays like a hybrid with improved forgiveness. The low swing weight makes it extremely easy to handle, and it's the most balanced shape in the lineup in my assessment. Power and pop are similar to the hybrid, low to mid-range with crisp Gen 3 rebound. The feel sits somewhere between Gen 2 softness and a stiffer Gen 3 build with clean feedback at impact. The elongated measures 16.5 by 7.4375 inches, call it 7.5 inches, with a 5.5-inch handle. My test unit weighed 7.89 ounces static with a swing weight of 114.55 and a twist weight of 6.1. The bounce point at 24.5 centimeters gives it a more head-loaded feel. The elongated offers more reach and leverage, but stability is lower than the standard with that 6.1 twist weight. The shape is going to feel familiar for elongated players, and it benefits from the Gen 3 semi-floating foam structure in terms of overall feel and pop. I tested adding 4 grams of weight at 3 and 9 to reduce twisting. As stock, I struggled to play this one, but with weight, I'm actually enjoying it quite a bit. All 3 shapes fit into that Nightshade lineage or Chorus Phoenix territory, Gen 2/Gen 3 transitional builds, and modern foam integration. Gherkin is targeting players who still love the feel of polypropylene and want a mid-tier firepower paddle with forgiveness and predictability. However, forgiving is not a word I would use to describe these paddles, but they're also not unforgiving. There is a small break-in period where the pitch of the ball hitting the paddle changes as it fully breaks in, and surface wear so far is normal for this category. At $121 with code MPB, this is competitive with other Gen 3 options, and the standard shape is probably the most well-rounded of the three. All right, next up, let's talk about... All right, next up, let's clear some room here. And let's talk about Adidas. Adidas is back with the ADIPOWER Pro Edition line. They've got three paddles here, the ATTK in 14 and 16 millimeter elongated, and the Control in 16 millimeter standard shape. All three have some interesting quirks worth talking about. My sources at Adidas said that this construction uses a notched perimeter foam ring with a polypropylene honeycomb core center, plus additional foam at the tip. I haven't x-rayed these, so I can't confirm exactly what's inside. All I know is what I'm being told. The face is raw carbon fiber with a coarse peel-ply texture across all three models. At $189, these sit in the upper mid price range for Gen 3 paddles. Adidas backs them with a 1-year manufacturing warranty, which shows some confidence in the build. You can buy these directly from Pickleball Central. There's no discount code, but my understanding is that you'll get a gift card with your purchase if you use my promo link at pickleballcentral.com/MPB. Just remember, MPB everywhere. One thing to note up front, the stock grips on all these paddles are pretty bad. I ripped them off and replaced them with a single overgrip, which improved feel significantly. Just something to keep in mind if you pick one of these up. Starting with the ATTK elongated models, both measure 16.5 inches long by 7.5 inches wide with a 5.5 inch handle. The 14 millimeter came in at 7.92 ounces static with a swing weight of 123.3 and a twist weight of 6.55. That's a high swing weight for an elongated 14 millimeter build. It's got real mass when you swing through the ball. The 16 millimeter weighs 8.04 ounces static with an even higher swing weight of 126.1 and a twist weight of 6.45. That 126 swing weight is very high and will slow down most players' hands. Full disclosure, I haven't played the ATTK 16 millimeter because I need my shoulder, and anything over 126 swing weight causes me physical discomfort. Will I play it? A couple games. The last paddle I played with an absurdly high swing weight like that was the OG Franklin Dynasty 16 millimeter. So my takes on that one are going to be purely based on specs and handle feel. More on that in a bit. So on the court, the ATTK 14 millimeter sits on the lower power side compared to top power frames. Those are unofficial numbers. I don't think power matches the YOLO Pro 4 or RPM Friction Pro, nor do I think these play anything like those paddles. But the pop on counters is crisp once you get the timing set. The face is stiffer with a hollower response, slightly hollower, rather than plush. I don't know what to compare it to just yet. The face is stiffer with a slightly hollower response rather than plush, and I don't know what else to compare this to just yet. What's interesting about the ATTK 14 millimeter is that it plays like a stable 16 millimeter paddle despite being a 14 millimeter build. Resets were easy after a short adjustment period, and the raw carbon face grips the ball well for spin. I noticed some in-hand twisting on off-center hits, so adding weight is recommended to stabilize it even more. I think the ATTK 16 millimeter surface is grittier than the Pro 4, and maybe the RPM. Not the blackout face RPM, but the non-blackout face one. Jury's still out there. Anyway, that grit is going to help with spin generation. But that 126 swing weight is the main story here. Based on how it feels swinging it around, it would give you serious plow through on drives and overheads, but you're going to feel it in faster exchanges. This isn't a paddle for everyone. It's for players who can handle slower hands and that additional weight and want maximum stability and power through contact. One quirk worth noting is the ATTK 16 millimeter has a chunky handle circumference at 4.5 inches. Why would you do that? The 14 millimeter feels normal at 4.125 inches. If you have slightly smaller hands or prefer thinner grips, the 16 millimeter model is just going to feel awkward. Now, the Control 16 millimeter, this is the standard shape option at 16 by 8 inches with a 5.5 inch handle and a 4.5 inch grip circumference. My test unit came in at 7.99 ounces static with a swing weight of 118.5 and a twist weight of 7.25. It's a really high swing weight for a standard shape paddle. That twist weight is noticeably higher than both ATTK models, making it the most stable of the three. The lower swing weight also makes it more maneuverable than the ATTK 16 millimeter. The control plays differently than the elongated models. The wider face gives you more forgiveness on off-center hits, and that higher twist weight keeps the paddle tracking straight through contact. It's still got that stiffer, slightly hollower Gen 3 feel, but the stability and forgiveness make it the most approachable of the three, in my assessment. Between the three, here's how I break this down. The ATTK 14mm is for players who want reach, power, and punch with the stability of a 16mm paddle. Even with that higher swing weight of 123.3, it delivers good power and punch. The ATTK 16mm is only for players who specifically want very high swing weight and can handle slower hands. The Control 16mm is well-rounded with better forgiveness and easier handling for most players. If I'm picking one of these from this lineup, it's the ATTK 14mm. It plays like a stable 16mm paddle with power and punch, and that 123.3 swing weight is manageable enough to be effective. The Control 16mm is the safer choice for players wanting maximum forgiveness, but the ATTK 14mm hits harder when you need it to. Now, I'm not actually sure if I'm going to do a full review on these unless there's interest. So if you want to know more about this lineup, let me know in the comments. Next up is the Diadem Edge BluCore. This is their follow-up to the Warrior BluCore line, which drew mostly negative reviews. I came into testing the Edge series pretty skeptical, and I've already recorded and am now editing the full review, which I will post here soon. I've been hitting with all four models, both the Pro and Hybrid, each in the 14mm and 16mm builds, and these are clear improvements over the Warrior, but they aren't market shakers at this price point or with these play characteristics. The construction uses what Diadem calls Power Sync BluCore, marketing speak, solid EPP foam core with a tapered EVA perimeter ring around the edges. It's not a floating core like some Gen 3 builds, and without that EVA ring, these would feel even harsher than they already do. They've added some high-density foam inside the paddle as internal weighting instead of requiring you to add it externally. That raises swing and twist weight, improves stability, and is supposed to cut vibration. The Edge uses shock guard silicone molded into the edge guard for dampening and mass. The face is 18K triaxial carbon with solid grit, and spin is definitely the standout here. I consistently got good bite on serves and could really shape topspin drives. The surface grips the ball very well. The power falls in the controlled mid to upper tier, enough to finish points and stay aggressive, but not overwhelming. Pop at the net was right around average too, functional, but nothing that really stood out. The 14mm versions are quicker and more agile, but they twist more on off-center hits and can feel harsh. The 16mm versions are more stable and more forgiving, with a slightly bigger sweet spot, and the response is still stiffer and also less lively. At $250 retail or $225 with code MPB, these are competing against paddles that cost less and play better. The Bread and Butter Loco comes in at $180 with my code and delivers more response, better pop, and better feel. The Rhombus Quanta is $99 with code and can be customized to outperform these at half the price. Now, the one thing that Diadem offers that some others don't is a lifetime core warranty against dead spots and delamination. That adds value, but does it justify paying $75 to $150 more when alternatives perform better? I don't think so. So these are functional paddles with thoughtful engineering, internal weighting, EVA perimeter, silicone dampening. But in today's competitive market, functional isn't always enough. So if I had to pick from this lineup, the Pro 14 is the one I'd play for speed and agility, but even then, I'd add weight to stabilize it. The full review with all the test data will be up here soon. All right, moving on to Vatic's newest launch, the V-Sol Pro and V-Sol Power. Both lines sit at $99 with code MPB, and they represent two very different approaches to foam core construction. The Pro uses a floating EPP core with an EVA perimeter ring. That hollow chamber creates immediate energy return with a trampoline-style response. The Power takes the opposite approach with full EPP foam construction and hexagonal indents throughout the face. No floating core, no hollow chamber. It's solid from edge to edge with controlled compression points. Both are available in three shapes. You've got the Bloom wide body, Flash hybrid, and V7 elongated shapes. Same handle dimensions across the board, 5.3 to 5.5 inches with a 4.125 inch grip. Now, there is a longer handle variant. I just don't have them. The Pro has that hollow, quick rebound typical of floating core builds. The Power plays denser and more muted with a steadier pace that's easier to manage but less lively. Stock, the Pro feels stable but a little inconsistent until you add weight. With about 9 grams up the throat, 3 grams on each side, 3 on top, it stabilizes completely. Resets become more controllable and the paddle plays significantly better. The Power is more immediately predictable but lacks that explosive ceiling. Both series run lighter than typical for their shapes. The Flash particularly felt had light until I added weight. In between the two, the Pro has the larger, more forgiving sweet spot. The Power's drop-off outside center is more noticeable. At $99, 99 bucks. Both offer legitimate foam core performance. The Pro is for players who like hollow feedback and don't mind adding weight. It can scale into serious performance with some customization. The Power's for players wanting predictable, muted feedback, but with a smaller sweet spot and sharper edge drop-off. The most direct comparison is to the Rhombus Quanta. The Pro is easier to use stock, while the Quanta starts lighter and looser but offers more tuning range. With weight, both scale into strong performers. Between the two Vatic approaches, I'd take the Pro, but only if you're willing to customize it. All right, let's move on and talk about the Zephyr from Element 6 Pickleball. A $139 paddle, $125 with code MPB that surprised me with how solid it plays right out of the box. This is a hybrid shaped paddle with a 16mm EPP foam core and an EVA ring. Sound familiar? The face uses carbon fiber with a coarse peel-ply texture, and my test unit came in at 7.84 ounces static with a swing weight of 109.55 and a twist weight of 6.4. Pretty good numbers. On the court and during play, the standout characteristic is stability. This paddle resisted twisting on off-center contact and had a notably solid sweet spot out of the box. It plays light in hand, easy to accelerate through the swing, and quick in exchanges. Serves come off with good pace, nothing super explosive, but consistent depth when I wanted it. Pop at the kitchen was noticeably quick, and the response on counters was excellent. Spin was capable, but not super elite. I could shape shots and get bite on drives, but this isn't competing with the highest spinning paddles. In terms of play feel, between the denser response of some paddles and the hollower stiffness of others, it's stiff and responsive overall, but it delivered dependable playability in drops, resets, and dinks and all shot types with no notable deficiencies. I think the closest comparisons are to the Honolulu Pickleball J2NF. Similar feel and playability with the Zephyr showing slightly less pop, and the Bread and Butter Loco in terms of stock feel among EPP paddles in this price range. It's not positioned to surpass the Selkirk Boomstick, but it sits below it, well below it in price. One of the biggest limitations is the single hybrid shape. No elongated, no wide body, just one configuration, hybrid. If you don't like hybrid, you got hybrid. But for players seeking a foam core hybrid with strong out-of-the-box performance, good pop, stable feel, and moderate spin without needing to add weight, the Zephyr does deliver at $125 with code MPB. Let me know if you want to know more about this one in the comments, and I'll consider doing a full review on it. All right, next up is the RPM Friction Pro, a paddle that is rapidly rising to one of the best Gen 3 constructions I've played. If it's not clear yet, I really enjoy the way this paddle plays, and it's the paddle I main right now, and it's the paddle I take to matches when I need to play my best and not let my partner down. Playing new paddles all the time is super fun, but when it counts, this is the one I'm taking. I've been alternating between the Friction Pro elongated 16mm and the Perseus Pro 4 16mm, and there are some differences I'm still picking up on. The Friction Pro has this softer launch where you can feel the ball get absorbed in the face and release in a linear way. On the Friction Pro elongated 14mm compared to the Yola Perseus Pro 4 14mm, that's a mouthful. Now that one I'm having a very hard time identifying the differences between the two, but the differences are noticeable in the 16mm builds. I haven't run the full power, pop, and spin numbers yet, but power levels seem similar to Perseus. But the control is where things get interesting. The Perseus still has that firmer, crisper response, but the Friction Pro leans into softness and touch without sacrificing power. On resets and thirds, that absorption and linear response is clean and predictable. The Friction Pro sits right in that zone where the power is definitely there, I think, as much as the Perseus, but it comes with a smoothness that makes shots manageable and predictable, and absorbing pace is effortless. RPM's Gen 3 construction is what's setting this apart, and that highlights one of the key differences between Gen 3 and Gen 4 full foam core construction: feel. I don't think Gen 4 plays as well as the best Gen 3 paddles, at least not yet. And the evidence is clear when you look at how few pros at the highest levels actually play full foam. Now, there's been some drama where people are saying this is just a Yola Pro 4 knockoff. The Friction Pro elongated 14mm plays very similarly to the Perseus Pro 4 14mm. I'll give you that. But the 16mm does not. Just because an X-ray of one paddle looks similar to the other doesn't mean it plays similarly. And these 16s do not, at least the blackout version that I have. I actually think that statement is absurd, given the fact that the materials and ingredients can't possibly be identical, down to the same type of foam, honeycomb, carbon fiber, etc. That's like saying every Gen 1 or 2 paddle is a knockoff of whoever created those first models. Anyway, the power is excellent, spin is exceptional, and pop at the net isn't too much, and it's also not too little, and the sweet spot is big. I still get that big dwell spin at the center, and I think there's a softer, more pronounced dwell than my Perseus 4. Spin might be better than the Perseus, not sure on that yet, haven't run the numbers again, but the ability to shape the ball could be coming from the high grit on this model as much as the dwell. At $249, it's competitive with other premium paddles and a bold price point for a brand new company. Honestly, if this were priced around $199, I think there would be less noise. I'm working on a full review, but for now, if you want that softer, more forgiving response with a paddle that excels at finesse shots and still has some punch, this deserves consideration. More to come on the series as I start weaving in the 14mm elongated and standard shapes. All right, last one is the Flik Falcon 13mm. I know I'm probably in the minority here, but my experience with this paddle is fundamentally different from many of the positive takes out there. This is an elongated 13mm build with an EPP foam core and circular cork dwell pads embedded beneath the hitting surface. It has a 3-layer raw Toray carbon face with a coarse peel-ply texture. My test unit came in at 8.04 ounces static with a swing weight of 118.6 and a twist weight of 6.05. Think about that swing weight for a second. Actually, not bad for an elongated paddle, but for a 13mm paddle, that's pretty high. This paddle is extremely head heavy to the point where it feels uncomfortable over longer sessions. That front-loaded mass gives it exceptional plow-through and power, but at a cost. Control suffers. For me, this paddle makes the soft game harder, not easier. If your reset stinks or touch shots aren't dialed in, the Falcon magnifies every error. It has so much pop and follow-through weight that anything off-center or slightly mistimed tends to sail. You need to be fully calibrated to play this one. I never got to the point of fully trusting where the ball was going off the face, particularly in transitional exchanges or pressured resets. While I have seen others highlight confidence and control, I've had the opposite reaction. The combination of head heaviness, trampoline response, and thin core explosiveness make it feel unpredictable. It hits hard, no question, but it's not forgiving. And what good is power if it's hard to control? On full swings, this thing has serious power and plow-through. Drives and overheads come off hot and heavy. Spin is a standout. The raw face and extended dwell time from those cork pads let you generate heavy topspin with relative ease. The feel is muted and plush when you catch it clean. But I think that's the issue. You have to catch it clean. The head heaviness and power bias make it unforgiving if your control game isn't airtight. It can magnify mistakes, sending balls deeper or hotter than intended. And I think the best fit is for players with a firm, confident, controlled base who want big power, heavy topspin, and don't mind a front-loaded swing. If you can drive through the ball and value put-away potential over touch forgiveness, this may line up well. But if you rely on feel-based resets, softer dinks, or struggle with depth control, this paddle will amplify those weaknesses. At $190, better with code MPB, it's positioned as a tech-forward foam build, but for me, the head heaviness and unpredictability in the soft game are just deal breakers. So that's it for this episode. We covered 8 paddles across a pretty wide spectrum, from brand new market entrants to established companies trying to course correct, and even some legacy brands jumping back into the game. Pickle Poppers is the new Korean brand with that bread and butter style character-driven branding, premium packaging, and interesting transparency around Frost PB Core situation. The Gherkin Wraith series brings semi-floating Gen 3 construction at a budget-friendly $121 with code MPB. Adidas came back with the ADIPOWER Pro Edition, ATTK, and Control. High swing weight elongated paddles and a standard shape at $189 that work better in 14mm than 16mm for, I think, most players. Diadem's Edge BluCore improved on the Warrior, but still has a hard time justifying the $250 price tag when better options exist for less. Vatic V-Sol Pro and Power at $99 with code MPB need customization to shine, but the Pro has real potential if you're willing to add some weight and customize it. The Element 6 Zephyr surprised me with how stable and solid it plays right out of the box at $125 with code MPB. RPM's Friction Pro is rapidly becoming one of my top Gen 3 recommendations. That softer, more controlled feel sets it apart despite the knockoff drama. And the Flik Falcon is a head-heavy power paddle that I just couldn't get comfortable with, even though others seem to love it. Full reviews are coming for some of these lines once I get some more time with them, and I'll be diving deeper into the RPM Friction Pro series as I test the 14mm elongated and standard shapes. Remember, you can use code MPB on most of these to save money on your purchase. Links are all in the description. If this episode helped you figure out which paddle might work for your game, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the full reviews when they drop. Thanks for watching or listening, and I'll see you in the next one.